Hello, Future Tribe, and welcome to this episode of the podcast or the video if you're watching us on YouTube. Links to the YouTube channel down below, and we've also got a Future Tribe Clips YouTube channel that you can check out in the links down below. That's a bit of a breakdown, so you can watch short videos, nice and condensed, of the different things that we talk about every episode. Speaking of episodes, this week's episode, we've got about 10 different things to talk about, starting with an update on the .au domain name. Volvo refreshes their logo, WooCommerce celebrating 10 years, and the ABC America logo getting a refresh. And we've got Kelsey with the rest of the items.
Yes, so we'll also be talking about CNN leaving Facebook in Australia. Absolut Vodka has had a refresh of their bottles and branding. One Google update, I should say. NAB and TAB's jab campaign, which has been circulating in Australia, and LogoDesignTheory's YouTube channel.
That's a YouTube channel that I just put in there because I've been checking it out, and it's really quite good for anyone looking at designing their own logos. Anyway, I'm Germaine, and we've also got Kelsey. Let's
Hey.
roll the intro. All right. So the .au domain name update, I mentioned this to you yesterday, Kelsey. I attended a webinar that went for an hour on the domain name, which seems like a bit excessive considering that we're still 6 months away from the release of that domain name. For those of you who didn't watch the previous episode, I think it was 2 episodes ago that we spoke about .au, which they're calling .au direct. There were some interesting things that came out of it, but the main thing is that one, it's going to be launched on the 24th of March next year. So we're looking at just under 6 months, if my maths is correct. And interestingly, this is something that I didn't realize, and I think it'll be interesting to see how they actually monitor this. But technically, I think it's anyone who resides in Australia can register a .au domain, which is different to the .com.au, .org.au, etc., because those domains actually have eligibility criteria. That means that every time you register a .com.au, for example, you need to give in an ABN, and they need to check that and confirm that you have an ABN in Australia, and then they'll give you your .com.au domain, whereas .org.au requires you to actually be a ACNC registered not-for-profit. There's a few things around it, but you've essentially got to be a legitimate business. And I didn't realize that .au Direct's going to be so much more open. Have you ever tried to record a domain name yourself and had issues?
No, not myself. But I mean, I guess this will make it a lot easier if somebody like me did want to go and register a domain, because I don't have to go through the loopholes of .com.au, not loopholes, jump through hoops. That's the one I'm looking for. To go through, to get, .com.au. So might open up a lot for smaller businesses, individuals, that kind of thing.
Exactly. I think the goal there is that if you're a startup, if you're they spoke a lot about people who sell on platforms like Facebook Marketplace, who want to register a domain or have their own website and take that jump over, but haven't been able to because they don't want to go through the expenses of, say, getting an ABN, because you don't necessarily need an ABN to trade in Australia. So this opens up the potential for them to create websites. And they've also spoken about companies who want to set up sort of temporary landing pages or do temporary marketing campaigns could use a .au. Initial signals suggest that .au Direct is going to cost about $9 a year, so quite affordable compared
Really
to
cheap.
Yeah, really is quite cheap. And I think that is potentially because they just need to verify probably a residential address, and that's it, versus needing to do like an ABN lookup and confirm the details there. So opens up a few different possibilities moving forward, and I think I'm still very excited for it. There's still the stuff around, priority periods. So if you've got a .com.au or a .net.au or .org.au, you can still you get that preferential treatment for the first 6 months. So there's nothing changing there. Another interesting thing I found actually was that the AUDA, who manages the .au domains in Australia, mentioned that they saw, from memory, it was about a 5% increase in domain names being registered during the COVID sort of pandemic period, which, is being studied by economists, because that's obviously an expense that businesses have borne in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of a period where some businesses have struggled. So they've
Mhm.
sort of brought that up as an interesting point, because you would assume that a majority of these businesses, I would assume, actually registered a domain and probably paid a third party to build a website for them. So I think I found that really interesting. But
Yeah, it's not super surprising though, because obviously with the pandemic, all of a sudden you've got all these lockdowns, people can't come into shops, and I imagine a lot of those businesses did rely on that foot traffic, and they had to do something. They had to put cost into something to keep their business going, and if that was a website and a domain, that makes
yeah,
a lot of sense.
it
And in the big scheme of things, not that expensive, I think.
definitely, and it was probably one of the few uh, places where they could actually spend money as an investment into the business, because with everything shut down, what else would you be spending your money on? Um,
Exactly.
Another interesting thing that they pointed out was that there are about 3.5 million, I think it was actually 3.3 or 3.4 million domain names registered in the .au sort of space. So that's a pretty decent number. That's above 10% of the population if we were to attribute a domain name per individual, and
Mhm.
that's forgetting the .coms and the .cos of this world, where people have registered or trade under a domain name extension that isn't in Australia. So I thought that was quite a good webinar. They're going to keep releasing more information moving forward, and for our customers at Future Theory, we'll keep you in the loop as well as more news comes through on that, and we'll be helping customers register their domain names as well. We've got 6 months, from the 24th of March, so there's no mad rush there, but we'll be providing more information as more information comes afoot. The next one is the Volvo logo refresh. Let me share this with everyone watching, so that you can see what we're talking about. I I think this is a misstep. I think this is backwards. I actually didn't realize how weird the Volvo logo was until I looked at it in isolation like this.
Mhm.
I'm not the demographic for Volvo. I think they've been trying to become more hip, more young, more sporty, but there's still got that sort of older architect or sort of quote unquote soccer mum sort of vibe to them. But what's your experience been with Volvo, Kelsey?
I think I just have this idea that it's kind of an old people brand. I'm not really sure what they're trying to do with this refresh. It kind of just looks like clip art to me, which again is like an old person thing. So I'm not sure if that's really helping. Um, yeah, I don't really know what to think about it, to be honest.
Well, they've done something that we're seeing. I feel like every single mention, and later on this episode, we're going to talk about ABC America's refresh as well. Every single recent refresh has been taking a 3D logo and flattening it.
Hmm.
VW's done it, BMW's done it. So it's not it's not a weird thing for them to do. I just think the end result comes out very weird. That arrow on the top right is just weird's the only way I can describe it.
Yeah, and the word mark, because they haven't really changed the word mark in terms of the font, and that and lining up with the thickness of the circle, it doesn't sit right with me for some reason. Like it just doesn't look like they were intended to be joined like that.
It's quite mismatched as well because it's
Yeah.
a serif with a very minimal graphic around it. I also wonder what they would do on social media because this would not scale that well unless they just get rid of the Volvo wording in the middle.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that. I mean, there's a lot of brands I think that struggle with the social media scaling, but maybe that's, not their priority in that sense.
Biggest
Like
problem.
Volvo's probably not too concerned with their social media sort of stuff. I think they would be putting their marketing elsewhere.
Elsewhere. I think the only thing worse than the logo refresh is the application on these cars. This is a concept car application of the Volvo logo, and this is the mark on one of their more recent vehicles.
It's
I
like they've
can
got 3 different versions.
and it looks like a pimple. Like that's
Yeah, I mean, that one there looks more like the old logo. The one that we've got on screen at the moment, I feel like the arrow is in a different position to where it is in the
you are
main logo we were
correct.
looking at.
Yes, it
That's
is
just
sort of
confusing.
further closer down to the word mark.
And they've got that extra element of like the stripe that goes through, and I can see they're trying to do a 3D effect, I guess, on the edge of the stripe, but I just don't know why. And I don't know why they're introducing all these other elements rather than sticking to that brand.
I think, and I don't know for sure whether Volvo is necessarily struggling, but this might even be the sign of a company trying to find sort of the next step, the next wave. They, I think, have a very nice, a very clear image of being safe, and that's why that old person sort of brand um, comes to mind because they characterize what older, more responsible individuals would be looking for from their vehicles. And if you want to prioritize safety as a number one, um, Volvo, I think, has that brand image. But yeah, I don't know what they're trying to do. And then you've got the Volvo Group logo, which is just the Volvo text. But I think it's actually spread out. Is it? It's
Yeah.
spaced wider.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm really confused by all, like, there's just 3 or 4 different styles I feel like I'm looking at. It's kind of like they've got the concepts that they were working on and just gone, all right, let's just make this the brand. Throw them all out there and hope for the best.
Yeah, let's just make all of them um, the the various representations of the brand. The only thing consistent through here, I think, is the actual Volvo wording,
Mm.
despite the spacing slightly changing. So maybe in amongst all these, that's actually the one thing that stays constant, and the only other thing to that they want us to take out of it is that there's an arrow pointing to the top right.
Maybe. I don't know.
This is, I
Yeah.
guess, a message to everyone listening that you can really overcomplicate things, I think. And if you just come up with one, maybe two variations, stick with those, you would end up confusing people way less than Volvo's managed to do in this example. Um, Jumping from Volvo to WooCommerce, you've heard of WooCommerce before.
Yeah. I think it's through WordPress. A lot of people use it. Yeah.
100%. So WooCommerce is huge in the e-commerce WordPress sort of space. They're celebrating 10 years since they first launched their first iteration of the plugin. So that's quite a long time to be in market, especially with so much competition around. They've been down the plugin itself, WooCommerce, has been downloaded uh, half a million times. So that's a long way of saying 500,000 times. So it's actually, no, hold on. I'm completely wrong. No, I'm way off. It's been downloaded 5 million times as of
Okay.
2014.
That makes
It
more
was
sense.
500,000 times after 16 months in the wild. So after 16 months of
Okay.
being launched.
So I was thinking like only half a 500,000 customers or downloads or whatever seems like not a lot
Not a
across 10
lot.
years. It's really
I
quite
was
small.
thinking 500,000 as active installs, but even then that wouldn't be
Still not that big.
much.
Yeah.
It was acquired by Automatic, the guys behind WordPress.com, the guys who own WordPress.com.
I think we talked about them a couple episodes ago. We had a
We
talk
would
about
have.
Automatic.
We would have. They do come up. They have to come up. I mean, they are, to an extent, they are WordPress.
Yeah.
Automatic's owned by the founder of WordPress itself. So it was, yes, it was acquired in 2015, and I don't think they've released install-based numbers since then. But I think they generally say that they're running on more than 5 million websites, which is quite a solid number. I think in the world out there, WooCommerce still has a strong hold on the e-commerce space. But I just thought I'd mention the fact that they're celebrating 10 years of being a product, just because they're quite a significant plugin, and we're fans of WordPress. We use WordPress, so bit of a shout out there. The jumping to the next one, another logo refresh, and this is what I mentioned earlier when we were talking about the Volvo refresh, and that is the ABC America, not to be confused with ABC Australia, which are completely different entities despite the same name. They've done something very simple. Again, gone from a 3D look to a completely flat look. I've seen people comment that, the ABC logo is a masterpiece, but I don't necessarily agree. But what do you think, Kelsey?
I mean, it's simple. There's like 4 circles that's quite consistent. Yeah. I mean, they have really simplified it and given the ABC word or letters some more space. Slightly more consistency in the spacing of the C as well between the sort of edges of it. I like it. It's not offensive. It's nice and simple. They haven't sort of gone away from their roots of that classic design of just clean and simple ABC. Yeah.
Yeah, I think my issue with people saying that it's a masterpiece is that it was created at a time where there really weren't many other logos out there. In this day and age, I think we talk about it as a cop out if you put anything within a circle or a square. Like, that's just the easiest way to come up with a logo that works, that is balanced, because you just put it within a shape, and whatever you put within a shape like a circle, it becomes fantastic and easy to use because it's a circle. You can put circles anywhere, and they don't feel misplaced or misfitted. But then looking through and what else they've done with the application of the logo, I think that's where it truly shines. They've really modernized a brand that has existed for so long in a way that feels modern, feels dynamic, and potentially even refreshing. Like, circles are hard to do differently these days. And I feel like this animation we're showing on the screen, for example, um, is quite unique.
Mm-hmm. I really like it. I think it would be really effective, obviously, as well on TV where ABC operates. And as you said, like it can be a bit of a cop out with having the circle, but because they're such an established company, they can continue to use their circle without it being a cop out. And they've managed to, as you said, refresh it in a modern way.
Well, they've got the
Really like all
history
these animations. Yeah.
anyway. Yeah, this is wonderful. Like a very obvious filled-in circle for when they're sort of co-branding with one of the shows and one of the programs, and
Mm-hmm.
then making it see-through with just the circle outline, for when it's on screen mid-show, so that it's not sort of getting in the way too much, but it's still quite nice. By the way, I apologize if my dog's barking is coming through. She is going crazy. She's been going crazy for the last few days. So we are still working from home. I can't wait to go back to the office, just because Kalu's getting a bit crazy these days. So I do apologize for that. And looking through again, wonderful use of circles. I think uh, I I think it's quite unique, and I'm surprised that they've been able to do circles in a different way.
Yeah, I like the way, for those that are looking at the screen at the moment, the way they've got that spotlight. It's just, it's very creative. It just really, they can use the circle to put a highlight on what they need to, whether it is the logo or take away the spotlight by making it transparent. However it is, I think they're just using it really effectively.
This one's an interesting application, I think, though, where it looks fine, but I wonder how you would define this as a rule, because they've sort of just plopped the ABC
Yeah, a
logo
bit
in
of
the
an
middle of some
overlap on an
text.
E and not on the rest of
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah. Like I don't know how you would define that, but then again, they're not a small business, so they're not necessarily relying on the most efficient way to apply things. They'd have 5 sets of eyes to look through something before it goes out, um, if not more. So they can probably afford to do things that are less traditional, less rigid, because they have the talent to then go through it all and make sure that it all works. Because even this application here, which is supposedly a record sleeve, um, which, yeah, I'm not sure about some of these applications, let's put it that way.
I feel like those are quite niche applications, though, on the whole, where they're using the logo sort of on screen or on their billboards, things like that. I think that it seems pretty good. It's just those weird situations of merchandise that they seem to be trying to do something funky with.
Yeah, I wonder if it's even merchandise these days, like who's selling records with their own logo on it. But it might just be one of those cases of trying to find examples that don't give away, upcoming products, or don't give away anything, that still let you display and showcase your new logo in style, and in a unique application. Going through mockups and going through examples of new logo refreshes and new logo launches, I think I've seen my fair share of really weird applications, and ABC just couldn't resist having their own variation of that. Next one is CNN leaving Facebook in Australia. Have you heard about this?
No, not too much. If you want to walk me through it.
So I'm going to try and find the actual court case that led to this, um, but it was, here we go. It was the Dylan Voller who took a case to court, that essentially made the courts decide whether media organizations should be liable for comments left on their Facebook pages. This all happened back in 2016 after a TV expose on the mistreatment of minors in the criminal detention system showed a photo of Dylan Voller hooded and strapped to a chair when he was only 17. That photo was used for their articles of various media outlets, posted on Facebook, etc. And then commenters falsely accused the victim in this photo, or the subject of this photo, of serious crimes such as raping an elderly woman, which is huge. Obviously, not the kind of thing that you just want to be throwing around. Um, but what essentially happened out of that was that it was taken to court. He took it to court and saying that these media organizations are responsible for defamation, amongst a bunch of things. And the courts agreed with him that these platforms are responsible for the comments that are then played. So the the outlets are responsible for the comments placed on these platforms, and the platforms aren't responsible for the comments. It's a can of worms, I think, because it then comes down to, okay, who's responsible for this thing, who's enabling what, where do you draw the line, so on and so forth. Because I think, you get there's a bit of an old school reference, but phone numbers written in toilet stalls. Are we then making the people who constructed the toilet responsible for the phone number being handed out? You know, I know it's a very arguably a very different example, but I guess what I'm trying to bring up is who's the enabler in this instance, who then becomes responsible, because is it the company that manufactured the permanent marker in that example? Is it Facebook in this example?
I think social media, it's a very difficult thing to compare to other life situations because it's a very unique environment. And I think when it comes to figuring out who's responsible for some of these things, I personally really I agree with this court case and sort of the outcome of it, in that if you're a media organization and you're putting a story out that could be, the subject matter could sort of be a bit, what's the word? Polarizing, or, people are going to have opinions on whatever the subject matter is.
Not black or white. It's going to be
Yeah.
gray at best in a lot of instances.
Exactly. And of course, you've got the comment system there where people are going to be saying their piece. And I think it really is on the media organizations to sort of monitor what's going on and the story that they've put out there and the content that they've brought up as an issue or as a subject, to sort of say, this comment's not okay, this is racist or derogatory or whatever it is, and be in control of that. Because I think something like Facebook, I just don't know it's their responsibility. They're providing the platform. But when it comes to the media organizations, they're the ones saying, hey, here's a story to think about and discuss and whatever. But, we're not going to have responsibility of what you say about it from that point. That just doesn't quite line up with me.
Two questions there, though. One, what happens when it's not so black and white? Like when the comment is more like defamation or calling someone, say, ugly. Like who do you decide? Like who's to decide? Okay, where you cannot say this in the comments, and then at what point does the comment section then become just more or less pointless because no one can provide their opinion? So that's one sort of, I guess, retort to that. And then the other is, shouldn't Facebook just let you not allow comments? Like YouTube does that. YouTube lets you upload a video and disable comments.
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to like not having an opinion, I don't think that's the case. It's more a case of don't be racist or harmful, essentially. So you can still have an opinion, you can still say your things, but if it is harming other people, that's where the media organizations need to step in. And like all of the media organizations forever have had codes of ethics that they need to operate by, and they'll understand that pretty well. And I think it's, there is sometimes when there is like the gray area where it can be a bit difficult to distinguish between, real ethical issues or sort of, yeah, it can be a gray area. Sometimes I get that, but I think in most cases, the media organization should be able to identify that's not just an opinion at this point. Like that's a harmful comment. We need to sort this out.
That'll require a lot more staff though, because I would assume per like big news article, it would probably take 5 times the effort to monitor the comments on that news article than it took to push that news article out there. I think you could have one journalist and an editor look through it and then push it out to the public. Maybe a photographer, 3 people, but reading then through say 1,000 comments and deciding which one, what's what. I think it's just easier to allow someone to disable comments, allow a media organization. YouTube does it. It annoys me because there are instances where I see relevant or current information being pushed out, and I just want to go see what the general feeling around that topic is, and comments are disabled for better or worse. I think ABC in Australia, we were just talking about ABC US, but ABC in Australia, which is a government media organization or government funded public funded media organization, disables comments on a lot of their media and their news articles. I just feel like that's the easiest way, because otherwise you go down the road of media organizations that lean one way or the other, just deleting comments, and then, okay, if your comment gets deleted, do you then get the opportunity to go back and question why it was deleted, and just creates this, trap of conversations around stuff. And then I would argue for most people it's just easier not to have a comment section.
Yeah. I mean, I think in this kind of situation, when it comes to involving the law and things like that, it's more an issue of if you've got an article and every comment or like a large group of comments are problematic. I think it's more about like the general sentiment. I think, if you've got one comment from one person that comes through, I don't believe you can be responsible for that as a media organization. But when it's like a very like
It's
widely,
clearly going in one
yeah,
direction, and
it,
it's yes,
yeah,
yeah,
it makes me think of the Taylor Harris photo. So the AFL women's footballer who had that photograph of her kicking this incredible footy, leg up in the air. It was amazing. I think it was 7 News that posted the photo, and comments that came through were just vile and sexist. And then they got to the point where they just deleted the photo and then had to put out another post where I think they sort of apologized for what those people were saying and really condemned that
the
general
actions.
sentiment that had come through. Obviously, if it was just one or two commenters that came through and said some bad stuff, wouldn't have been as big of an issue. But because it was so significant, that's when they had to step in. And I think it's more situations like that where there's more, not so much overwhelming, but more significant of a group of people who are commenting these horrible things that they need to be held accountable versus just like one or two people, because you can't control those one or two people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do wonder, like, CNN's quite a big media organization, but I wonder if they even ran the numbers and sort of said, okay, so we need to monitor our presence in Australia, but does that actually make a business case for them? Does it make business sense? It probably doesn't, because I don't think CNN's big. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, CNN's huge, so they might be getting a significant amount of revenue from Australia, but I'd be very surprised if that is the case. And so they just
Yeah.
looked at it and sort of said, because media organizations these days have presence in every city, every country, because it's, I mean, you can just run the same operation out of your US headquarters and have all these specific pages around, and have one person working within that country, and yet have a greatly, I guess, well, much bigger presence within that nation, despite not having the actual physical presence in that nation. And maybe this is, maybe that's a good thing, that organizations that don't actually have a presence in a nation's market don't then get to manipulate. Well, I think, media manipulates, or at the very least, has a certain bias and pushes out information with that bias. Maybe, if CNN doesn't have the presence here, and therefore I think doesn't have um, as much of an interest in maintaining a balanced opinion and in maintaining decorum within Australia, because no one's going to be affected. I mean, they might have one staff member here. That then, well, it's their call. It doesn't make sense. Get out of here. If you're going to be here, staff it up, and step it up. You can't just make money out of a country or a people and not invest into that, past just pushing the same news article just branded to a different nation's URL or Facebook page.
Yeah, very true. Um, I don't blame them for leaving. I think it makes sense. I don't know.
Yeah, I would argue that there are too many news channels out here. Well, out there in general, for
Mm,
in Australia, for 25 million people. I mean, how many
yeah,
just how many Australian media channels are there, let alone the Al Jazeera, CNN, BBCs of this world that also focus in Australia? There's It's fantastic to have differing opinions, but when those, when they all don't have the same buy-in into a nation or into a demographic, I think that then leads to them doing questionable things because they don't have to face the repercussions. From that sobering conversation, pun intended, onto Absolut Vodka, they've refreshed their packaging, and there's two reasons I wanted to bring up and talk about vodka, Absolut Vodka refreshing things. One is that I love that they've, and I'll share this for anyone watching on um, YouTube or watching the video of the episode. They've simplified things down, but not changed things too much at the same time. But the biggest thing for me is that they're Swedish. I did not know this.
Really? There you go. I mean, they have made it
I
more of a focus. They've got in the new packaging Swedish vodka, and then down the bottom in the embossed part of the glass, country of Sweden. Whereas I think previously it's got Sweden mentioned in the right at the bottom,
but I've never
and
noticed
in
it
the
before.
in all the cursive writing, which I've never bothered to read, but is an
Oh,
iconic
yeah.
image to me.
I've never bothered to read that either. I think with making the Swedish side of things more obvious, I think Absolut has been able to differentiate themselves. The vodka market is absolutely like inundated. From a past life where I used to be around vodka a lot more, there's a lot more vodka brands out there than most people would even realize. But this allows them to, the mention of Swedish, for me, wrongly or rightly, Swedish vodka sounds more premium than, just vodka in general. And that's been the biggest takeaway for me from this refresh. What are your thoughts though?
I am a little bit in the middle at the moment. I think I don't know, the previous bottle is so iconic, and I feel like it's just you look at it and you know it's Absolute without even really needing to read because of just the big bold text and that cursive that, as we said, we don't never bother to read, but it's Absolute. That's what you see. And they've also gotten rid of so I think on the back of the bottle they tend to do like a bit of a graphic, and in that image above you could see the A with a big A dot.
Like a
Looks like
watermark?
yeah, it looks like they've taken that away. And they tend to use that space as well previously for like really special edition bottles, which have all these different graphics and colors and blah, blah, blah. So they've really pared that back quite a bit. In the new one, I think they've got like a little house or something at the back. If you scroll down a little bit, I think I saw a little hint of it, whatever that graphic
Mhm.
is.
It looks
Much more
like there's some
simple.
writing there that's illegible as well.
Yeah, which maybe is the place where they manufacture it.
Here we go. One source, one. Okay, so this is what used to be in cursive.
Yes, okay, so they've simplified that. And I like it. I just wonder how they're going to do those special edition bottles and things in the same way, whether they'll continue doing that or whether they're really simplifying and focusing on that one new brand that they've got. I do like it
Can
though.
I just mention this photography as well? They've I think they come across as very premium, even more premium than, I mean, I don't even know how much a bottle of Absolut Vodka would cost. I haven't sort of,
It's one of the cheaper ones.
I was gonna say I didn't think it was, I mean, it's they call themselves premium vodka. It's probably more
I
expensive
think
than like the really cheap.
every bottle of vodka says that.
I'm going to do a search as we. Okay, so it's a liter costs $60, so it's not.
It's
I
not
mean,
the really
my
premium stuff that's like 80 or 90 Australian. But it's also not the, $40 bottle that you pick up. You don't really know what the brand
that's
is, or you've never
methylated
heard of it and you'll
spirits.
never see it again. But yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, something. One vodka that I like is Belvedere. And so in comparison, Belvedere is $104 for a 1 liter bottle versus
Mhm.
$60 for a 1 liter bottle of Absolute. So it's not a, it's a middle tier sort of
Yeah.
product. But to me, it comes across as quite a nice product, and this photography certainly aids in that.
Yeah. I mean, I think this new branding that they've got is really simplified. And I think that it seems to be a bit of a trend where, like, the simpler it is, the more premium it looks, and the more info that's on there and the more colors and blah, 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 the cheaper it can look. So it seems like maybe they are trying to make their product a little bit more premium, or at least appear more premium without actually increasing price or anything.
Well, you never
Maybe they
know. Maybe the
will.
price will increase. Exactly.
Yeah. Hopefully
Maybe
not.
they will.
I feel like it's just such a staple, like, good choice. You just know that it's not going to be super terrible. Obviously, not the best, but it's just right there in the
Yeah,
middle.
it's a decent mixer.
Hmm.
That's wow, 400 years of Swedish tradition behind it. Um, so again, had to mention this one. I think they've done a good job ultimately, simplifying things at the very least, and they haven't messed with the Absolut Vodka word mark and lockup. And really, they've moved a few things around in the bottle, but to me, it's a tasteful refresh versus going a bit too far with things. And they're also like looking through all the collateral, or the examples that they've shown us. It it wasn't as much of a jump as, was it Moe that we talked about in Shandong a
Shandong.
few
Yeah.
episodes ago, where Shandong made a clear change in, well, not a change, but a clear step in a certain direction that
Mm,
Absolute has avoided going
yeah.
down.
I saw a bottle of Shandong in the wild the other day, and I thought it did look quite nice. It was pretty fresh,
So
I
they've
guess.
updated
Yeah.
the
Yeah, the
packaging
new one
now.
with the map of the world thing that we
Mhm.
talked about. Yeah, it looked quite nice.
I'll have to take a look next time. Moving on, Google updates. We talked about this. Well, I pointed it out to you yesterday.
Mhm.
Um, they're making a few different changes. This coverage is from TechCrunch, looking at um, the company Google is essentially trying to provide more context around websites, descriptions, essentially just trying to do what they're always trying to do, which is be the best provider of answers, for your search terms. Um, and this is manifested in a number of different ways. So in this image here, you can you can see. I mean, if you do a Google search yourself, you can see the changes that essentially allow you to look at um, the source of information and more information around a website in particular. So if I was to search, say, future theory, and we go further down, and this is just the LinkedIn result. It essentially creates a pop-up that shows you more information about the source, which is LinkedIn in this instance. Tries to link to the Wikipedia feed. So it's sort of taking things that we've had in the past, like the knowledge graph that we get on the right hand side, and putting it all in together so that you can see more information in one go. Um, in this example, we're looking at futuretheory.com.au. It was first indexed by Google more than 10 years ago. Um, Connection to the site is secure. So essentially providing a lot more information that if you knew where to look, this information did already exist and you could find it, but they're making it even easier than before. Um,
Hmm.
do you have any thoughts about what
I was
they've
just
done
kind of
here?
thinking, I wonder whether the average Joe will look into that. I'm not sure how often I would myself go and click on those little dots and explore that information, because it's sort of like I'll just click on the website. I don't really know what information it gives me that's helpful to me.
I think
Mm.
what it's doing is trying to provide more information if you're looking for that information, and make it easy to get that information. Because, like I said, all that information we've been able to find in the past, but it's taken a bit of work, particularly around when that site was indexed. Um, the A quick way to get that doesn't come to mind, so this is making it just a lot easier, I think. And ultimately, the only thing, apart from not doing bad things that companies like this can do, is provide us with the information so that we can at least make decisions ourselves rather than necessarily um, obscuring that information from us. So it's a step in the right direction, I would say, or
Mm.
at least a step in a better direction.
Yeah, feels like more transparency, I suppose.
It never hurts, never hurts. Um, On to something closer to home. NAB and TAB launched the Jab campaign. I wanted to say that. I had to say that.
I
Um,
could tell.
you said you've seen NAB. So essentially, actually, very quickly, NAB and TAB, or NAB and TAB, a bank and a betting company, have replaced the first letters in their names to say jab and to promote getting the COVID-19 vaccine in Australia. And we bank with NAB, so I've been seeing jab a whole lot of times. So they're clearly having the intended effect. And have you seen this out in the wild yourself, Kelsey?
Yeah, so I'm a big footy fan, love my footy. And the other day we
Footy
were
meaning
watching it
AFL
and
for
sorry,
or
yes,
Australian
AFL.
football.
AFL fan. And yeah, I saw, so in the AFL, obviously, most sports, they've got the big banners that go around the ground as the barriers. And yeah, they just had NAB, but obviously it was JAB in the NAB. I think it's red and serif font, just their logo, just circling through. And that was it, with the little star thing as well. Not much more to it, literally just jab in their logo. I thought it was really cool. It really got me. I mean, I had a conversation with my partner about it at the time, and we were just chatting about the brand and getting vaccinated and all that sort of stuff. And it was started a conversation. So I thought it was really effective.
This question, I mean, I think through this every single time I see something like this, around, are brands getting on this almost bandwagon for their own marketing benefit, or is it out of the goodness of their heart? Um, I don't I can't say I conclusively, can point to one or the other. Um, Especially when you're talking about a bank and a betting company, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I think when it comes to this kind of topic, it's just a classic CSR move. And I think brands these days really understand that they need to do things for social good, not only because it will impact, their bottom line and everything, but just because it's the right thing to do. And I think that, the employees care about it for one, and all of their customers care about it. And it's just doing the right thing by those people, which also does have an impact, obviously, on their bottom line. It's sort of a win-win, it might be coming from a selfish kind of place a little bit, but if it's doing good, is that the worst thing?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, exactly. They could be doing a lot more selfish. Well, they do a lot more selfish things that are a lot worse, than you know beneficial. So this is not bad at all. For
Mhm.
those who don't know the acronym, what does CSR stand for?
Oh,
You
sorry,
mentioned earlier.
corporate social responsibility. It's basically just all of the activities that a company will do that's sort of beyond their standard business operating. So whether it is those like charitable acts or letting your employees take a day off to volunteer somewhere, all of those sort of things that aren't as directly impacting the company, but are good for the world, I guess.
So
Just being a
essentially, looking at
responsible
how
company.
exactly how companies can be more responsible in the same way that I think all individuals should be as well. Um, so this is certainly a good CSR initiative and push. Yeah, even though especially TAB could be argued as to what their ultimate goal is, but
Yeah.
we can leave it at that for now. And the last one to finish off is I came across this YouTube channel called Logo Design Theory. Have you heard of the book by the same name before, Kelsey?
Oh, maybe. That sounds a little bit familiar when you sort of put it in the context of books, but I'm going to just confidently say no, though, for now.
Yes, it's a fairly established book by an established individual, and essentially it goes into how branding design really works is how it's positioned. It's been around for a number of years as well, and what the I forget the name of the guy behind it. I believe no, I still can't find it, but we'll have the link to the YouTube channel below. I've watched a couple of the videos out of interest, and essentially what's been done is that the book has been translated into short, 5, 10, 15-minute videos. And at this stage, looking through, um, it's not getting anywhere near the recognition that I think it potentially should. But then again, it's getting anywhere from they're getting anywhere from like 10 to 80 views per video. I think it's fair to say that we have similar type of content, and uh, it's not necessarily the kind of content that gets a lot of views. So it's not surprising that even someone who's a lot more established isn't getting a lot of views. But really good information for anyone who's either in the design world, the graphic design world, logo design world, or if you've got a brand, and if you are a CEO or have a startup and you have to think about these things, but don't necessarily have the budget to go to an agency. This is free. I believe it's actually ad free as well, so you don't even have to deal with YouTube ads. So it's not monetized. And yeah, I just wanted to mention it because there's some really great tips here. A lot of content, but uh, yeah, this is accruing years, if not decades, of knowledge from this individual, and you'll have to put up with a bit of old school, I guess, old schoolness is the
Hmm.
is the best way I can term it. Let me see if I can share a very quick, and I hope I really wish I would find. Here we go. I'm just going to find this guy's name. A. Michael Shoemate is might be the worst pronunciation of that name. I've just found his paperback. But let me do a quick share of the video to finish off this episode, just to show you what I mean by slightly old school. Okay. Is that audio coming through?
I didn't hear anything then, no.
No audio?
No, I don't think so, but I can
Okay.
already sort of see what you mean by old school.
Yeah, no audio, but you can see what I mean. I'm just scrubbing through. It's a calm older gentleman talking through. Um, it's it's in fact to the extent that it's a bit confusing to me as to whether this video was done
Oh no.
recently or not. Um,
I
because
mean yeah,
the type
backgrounds.
makes it thinks, yeah, exactly. The background's old school, but the type makes it look newer.
Well, have any of these logos been redone recently?
Oh, good question.
Don't
None
think
that
so.
none that come to mind. These all look like recent versions of the logos,
Yeah.
if I'm to be honest. But yeah,
Wow.
yeah, this is probably the best example. So, but what I would say is that a lot of the principles being discussed are timeless. A lot of the principles still stand true and hold true today, because at the end of the day, I think good design is timeless and good design is forever. So I wanted to bring this up and mention it to you all with, as always, have all these links in the description. But a fantastic YouTube channel to check out, fantastic resource. And I'll be sharing this channel shortly into the Future Tribe Facebook group as well. Again, link for that down in the description. That's it, unless I've forgotten anything else, Kelsey.
No, I think that's everything.
That
All
is
sorted.
everything. Fantastic. Well, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. I think it's time to roll the outro. Catch
Sounds
you all
good.
later.
Catch ya.